If a woman named Sheila knocks on your door, don't answer, just bolt. That was the first piece of wisdom I got after moving into our new home. My neighbor, old Mr. Thompson, delivered it while leaning on a weathered shovel, his flannel shirt barely tucked in. I chuckled, thinking he was pulling my leg. Run from what? Door-to-door salespeople? He fixed me with a stare that said I'd missed the point entirely. No, Tom. Sheila. She thinks she owns this whole street. HOA this, HOA that. Even if you're not in her club, she'll find a way to make you pay. I brushed it off. My wife, Ellen, and I had just settled into our cozy split-level home, complete with a sagging porch and a view of Willow Lake. It wasn't much, but it was ours, and best of all, it was free of any homeowners association. That was my non-negotiable when we bought the Placino HOAs. No busybodies, no petty dictators. After 30 years in a high-pressure job, I wanted retirement to be my sanctuary. Thompson's warning seemed like small-town folklore, the kind of tale old-timers spin to spook newcomers. Every neighborhood has its quirks, right? I figured Sheila was just a nosy retiree obsessed with mailbox colors or lawn heights. I'd dealt with worse. For the first week, life was idyllic. I built raised garden beds for peppers and zucchini, fixed the rickety dock by the lake, and Ellen hung her vintage quilt collection in the living room. Evenings were filled with the hum of crickets, the sizzle of steaks on the grill, and a quiet that felt like a warm blanket. Our daughter, Sarah, visited with her 2 boys, who tore through the yard chasing fireflies. "Dad," she said, squeezing my arm, "you look like you've finally found peace." I grinned. Hard not to out here. But that night, as the kids shrieked with laughter, I caught Thompson watching from across the street, shaking his head like he knew a storm was brewing. I should have listened. Days later, Sheila marched onto my porch, clutching a folder thick enough to double as a doorstop, her sunglasses glinting like a villain in a bad movie. That was when my slice of paradise started to crumble. "Mr. Bennett." Sheila's voice was sharp, cutting through the afternoon calm as I tightened a loose porch rail. She stood there, a vision of self-appointed authority, oversized sunglasses, a starched blouse, and a navy vest with HOA stitched in uneven letters. "I'm Sheila Dawson, president of the Willow Lake Homeowners Association. We need to discuss your overdue dues." I blinked. "My what?" She slid a paper from her folder with the flair of a courtroom lawyer. "Annual assessment, late fees, penalties $1, $2.75. Pay today, and I'll waive the processing fee." I laughed, assuming it was a mix-up. "You've got the wrong house. We're not in any HOA." Her head tilted, like she was sizing up a disobedient child. "Every home in this neighborhood is under our jurisdiction. It's in the covenants. Didn't your realtor explain?" I wiped sawdust off my hands. "I checked the deeds. Our lot's outside your boundaries." Her smile tightened. "You might want to read this again. Rules are rules." She thrust the paper at me. Ellen stepped out, dish towel in hand. "What's going on?" I handed her the paper. "This lady says we owe HOA fees." Ellen frowned. "But we're not in an HOA." Sheila's tone turned icy. "That's what everyone says until they learn the consequences. You're delinquent, and payment is due in 30 days. I crossed my arms. "I'm not paying a cent. Show me the county map, the legal documents. Until then, take your paper and go." Sheila slid the notice onto the rail, tapped it with a manicured nail, and leaned in, her perfume sharp and cloying. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I always get compliance, one way or another." She turned, heels clicking, and strode off like a general leaving a battlefield. Ellen watched her go. "She's trouble." I picked up the paper, noticing typos and a fake address. "Fake as a $3 bill," I muttered. But Sheila's parting words lingered like a threat. That night, I pored over our closing documents. The county map was clear. Our lot sat outside the HOA's shaded zone, marked by a bold line. "See," I told Ellen, pointing. "We're free and clear." She frowned. "Then why is she coming after us?" I shrugged. "Power trip, maybe. Or money." But deep down, I felt a knot forming. Sheila wasn't just annoying, she was dangerous. The harassment escalated quickly. A week later, a letter arrived, stamped "Final Notice" in red ink, demanding $1,375 with added penalties. Then another, this time with a 3-page legal brief, threatening a lien on our property. Ellen's hands shook as she read it. This looks serious, Tom. I shook my head. It's a cut-and-paste job. She's betting we'll panic. Neighbors weren't so lucky. Maria, from 2 houses down, admitted she'd paid $500 to avoid a lien. I've got kids in college, she whispered. I can't risk it. Thompson got a notice claiming his shed violated standards and owed $200. I'm 80, he grumbled. Last thing I need is a court fight. It was extortion, plain and simple, preying on fear. Then came the vests. One morning, I found orange cones blocking my driveway, with 3 men in reflective vests labeled HOA compliance, scribbling on clipboards. Routine inspection, one barked, citing lawn length and paint violations. I yanked their violation sign from the ground. You've got no authority here. The leader smirked. Tell it to Sheila. By noon, yellow tape marked half the block's driveways. A week later, a metal sign appeared at the road's entrance. Willow Lake Estates, private HOA property. It was a county road, but to nervous neighbors, it looked real. Maria confided. Sheila says she'll tow cars and block dock access. I shook my head. She can't do that. But fear was spreading, and Sheila was winning. I drove to the county clerk's office, where a weary clerk confirmed my suspicions. The Willow Lake HOA dissolved 8 years ago, she said, handing me stamped dissolution papers. If she's collecting dues, it's fraud. Armed with proof, I felt the tide turning. But Sheila wasn't done. She called county code enforcement, claiming my shed and fence were unapproved. Officers arrived, snapping photos while Sheila watched, smirking. Make sure you get the shed, she called. I showed the officers the dissolution papers. One whispered, this looks like a neighbor dispute, but we have to follow protocol. Protocol meant weeks of stress, exactly what Sheila wanted. She upped the ante with glossy flyers listing neighbors, violations, peeling paint, garden gnomes, even Thompson's rose trellis. At the bottom, her name blazed as HOA president. Neighbors panicked. Tom, from across the street, clutched his flyer. Is this real? I can't afford fines. I showed him the dissolution papers, but doubt lingered. Sheila's lies looked more convincing than my photocopies. The breaking point came with a certified letter threatening a $25,000 lawsuit from a non-existent HOA legal department. Ellen's voice cracked. If neighbors get these, they'll cave. I called Deputy Wilson, a friend from the sheriff's office, and laid out the evidence: fake fines, barricades, forged letters. This isn't just harassment, he said. It's fraud and impersonation. Bring the evidence. We'll build a case. Sheila called a mandatory HOA meeting at the community center. The room buzzed with tension as she stood at the front, flanked by her lackeys, clutching a binder like a scepter. Certain residents, she said, glaring at me, are spreading lies to undermine our community. I stood, holding the dissolution papers high. The Willow Lake HOA was dissolved 8 years ago. Sheila has no authority to collect dues or issue fines. The room erupted in whispers. Sheila shrieked, lies. He printed those off the internet. But when Deputy Wilson and 2 officers walked in, her bravado crumbled. We're investigating complaints of fraud and harassment, Wilson announced, taking my papers. This HOA is legally dead. The crowd roared, some angry, some relieved. Sheila screamed as officers led her out, her sunglasses clattering to the floor. The next morning, the neighborhood felt reborn. Sheila's house sat dark, her golf cart abandoned. Neighbors gathered, no longer whispering in fear. Tom apologized. We should have trusted you. Thompson's wife clutched canceled checks, hoping for restitution. By midday, we met at the community center, not for Sheila's theatrics, but to talk as equals. Do we even need an HOA? Tom asked. Ellen spoke up. What we need is fairness, not one person pocketing cash. The debate was calm, open, a stark contrast to Sheila's reign. No decision was made, but the fear was gone. The sheriff's office charged Sheila with fraud, harassment, impersonation, and mail fraud. Neighbors lined up to testify, eager to reclaim their money. One evening, Thompson brought cookies, and Tom shared a beer on our porch. Ellen leaned against me. It's our home again. I nodded. Amazing what happens when you kick fear to the curb. A week later, kids rode bikes freely, and Thompson tended his roses without worry. Neighbors organized potlucks and cleanups, no fines attached. Thompson stopped by with a grin. We're drafting a good neighbor agreement, nothing binding. Just a promise to look out for each other. Want it? I smiled. Best contract I've ever heard. As the sun set, laughter drifted from yards, and porch lights glowed. Sheila's scam had tested us, but we'd come out stronger. The truth had dismantled her empire, and peace had returned not because of rules, but because we'd stood together. What do you think about this story? Have you ever faced a bully like Sheila, using fear to control others? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about standing up to injustice and how far you'd go to protect your peace. Your voice matters, so weigh in.